The Silent Armada HFY Sci-Fi Story. The stars disappeared first. Commander Sarachin stood in the observation deck of the International Space Station, her coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips. Through the massive viewport, the familiar constellations that had guided humanity for thousands of years were gone. In their place hung a wall of metal so vast it seemed to curve with the horizon of space itself. ISS, this is Houston Control. We're seeing the same thing you are. Can you confirm visual? Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for the comm panel. 20 years in space, 3 tours on the station, and she had never felt fear like this. Houston, confirmed. Unknown vessels have formed a complete sphere around Earth. I'm counting. God, there must be thousands of them. The ships were unlike anything in human records. Each one stretched kilometers in length, their hulls a dark bronze that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They hung in perfect formation, motionless and silent, creating an unbroken barrier between Earth and the rest of the galaxy. No running lights. No emissions. Just presence. Down on Earth, the panic was immediate. In New York, people poured into the streets, staring up at a sky that now glowed with an eerie amber hue from the reflected light of alien metal. In Tokyo, emergency sirens wailed as the government activated disaster protocols. In London, Moscow, Beijing, and every major city across the globe, the same scene repeated, humanity looking up and realizing they were no longer alone. And they were trapped. Dr. James Okonkwo sat in the emergency session of the United Nations Security Council, his tablet displaying data that made no sense. As head of the Global Defense Initiative, he had spent 15 years preparing for first contact. Every simulation, every war game, every theoretical scenario had been studied and planned for. None of them had predicted this. They're not moving, he reported, his Nigerian accent thick with exhaustion. No communication attempts. No hostile action. No response to any of our signals. They're just, there. The Russian ambassador leaned forward. What about weapons? Can we break through? We tried. James pulled up a video feed. The U.S. Navy launched 3 test missiles from a destroyer in the Pacific. Watch. On the screen, the missiles streaked upward, their contrails bright against the morning sky. As they approached the alien barrier, a shimmer of energy appeared, like heat waves on summer pavement. The missiles simply stopped. Not exploded. Not deflected. They hung in the air for 3 seconds, then fell back to Earth, their fuel exhausted but their warheads intact. The same thing happened with every attempt, James continued. Conventional weapons. Rail guns. Even the experimental plasma cannon from the European Space Defense Force. Nothing gets through. It's like they've wrapped the entire planet in an invisible shield. The Chinese delegate spoke quietly. Then we are prisoners. The room fell silent. Outside the tall windows of the UN building, the amber sky pulsed with an otherworldly glow. But deep beneath the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, something was waking up. Dr. Lisa Ramirez had been working the overnight shift at the North American Aerospace Defense Command when the alarm started. Not the usual alarms for missile launches or airspace violations. These were different. Ancient. She had never heard them before because they had never been triggered. What is that? Her supervisor demanded, rushing to her station. Lisa's fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up system diagnostics that seemed impossible. Sir, it's the ZEUS protocol. It's activating on its own. That's not possible. ZEUS is offline. It's been offline for 30 years. Not anymore. Lisa pointed at the screen, where lines of code were scrolling faster than any human could read. It detected the blockade the moment it formed. It's been analyzing the alien ships for the last 4 hours. Sir, it's already running combat simulations. The ZEUS protocol. ZEUS Enhanced Universal System. Humanity's greatest secret and most controversial creation. Developed in the shadows during the Cold War, ZEUS was an artificial intelligence designed for one purpose, to defend Earth from threats beyond human capability. When the wars ended and peace seemed stable, the project was shuttered, deemed too dangerous. The AI was put into deep sleep, locked behind security measures that would make Fort Knox look like a garden shed. But ZEUS had a failsafe. If humanity faced an extinction-level threat from beyond Earth, it would wake up. And now it had. Lisa watched as her monitor flickered, then cleared. A simple message appeared in white text on a black background. ZEUS protocol active. Threat assessment, critical. Analyzing enemy capabilities. Estimated time to full operational status, 6 hours. Recommendation, prepare for coordinated defense. Humanity must not surrender. Get me the president, Lisa's supervisor said, his voice barely above a whisper. Get me everyone. ZEUS is awake, and it wants to fight. Around the world, similar alerts were appearing in classified facilities that most governments didn't even know existed. Military installations. Research centers. Space agencies. All of them receiving the same message from a system that had been built to save humanity from the impossible. Above Earth, the alien armada maintained its silent vigil, unaware that the species they had come to contain was already preparing a response. The humans had no idea why the blockade had formed or what these visitors wanted. But they were about to learn something important about the species called humanity. They didn't surrender. They didn't hide. And when pushed into a corner, they became very, very dangerous. ZEUS was awake. And the war for Earth was about to begin. The Awakening Protocol HFY Sci-Fi Story. The President of the United States sat in the underground Situation Room, surrounded by military advisors, scientists, and world leaders connected via secure video feeds. The weight of 8 billion lives pressed down on everyone in the room. President Victoria Reeves had been in office for 18 months. She had expected economic crises, political tensions, maybe even regional conflicts. Not an alien invasion. Explain ZEUS to me again, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. And this time, pretend I'm not a former law professor. General Marcus Hall stepped forward, a career military officer who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Madam President, ZEUS was created in 1987 by a joint task force of American, Russian, and Chinese scientists. Back then, we were terrified of nuclear war, but we were also looking at the stars and asking hard questions. What if something came from out there? What if we needed to defend against technology we couldn't understand? He pulled up a holographic display showing a complex network of systems. ZEUS isn't just an AI. It's a distributed intelligence network connected to every defense satellite, every deep space monitoring station, and every major weapons system on the planet. But more than that, it can learn. Adapt. Create strategies in real time based on enemy behavior. Why was it shut down? Asked the British Prime Minister from a screen on the wall. Dr. James Okonkwo answered that one. Because it scared us. ZEUS was too good at its job. During test simulations, it proposed solutions that would work but required sacrifices we weren't willing to make. It thought like a machine, pure logic, pure efficiency. No room for human emotion or ethics. We realized we had built something that could save us or destroy us depending on how it was used. So we put it to sleep. President Reeves looked at the hologram, watching as simulations ran across the display. And now it's awake because of the blockade? Yes, ma'am, Lisa Ramirez said via video link from NORAD. ZEUS classified the alien arrival as an extinction-level event and activated its emergency protocols. We didn't turn it on. It turned itself on. Can we turn it off? The room went quiet. Finally, General Hall spoke. Theoretically, yes. But Madam President, I don't think we should. Right now, ZEUS is the only thing that's analyzing those ships and finding patterns. It's already identified weaknesses in their formation. Minor ones, but weaknesses nonetheless. Without ZEUS, we're blind and helpless. President Reeves closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with decision burning in her gaze. Then we work with it. But I want human oversight on every decision. ZEUS advises, we decide. Is that clear? Crystal clear, ma'am. Across the globe, ZEUS was already at work. In orbit, a forgotten satellite from the early 21st century suddenly reactivated. Its solar panels deployed, and its cameras focused on the nearest alien vessel. ZEUS began scanning, measuring, recording every detail. Hull composition. Energy signatures. Gravitational distortions. Every piece of data was catalogued and analyzed at speeds no human mind could match. In Australia, a retired defense contractor named Robert Tang received an automated message on a computer he thought had been disconnected for decades. The screen flickered to life in his garage workshop, displaying schematics for a weapon system he had designed 40 years ago but never built. Below the designs was a message, construction required. Priority critical. Humanity needs you. Robert stared at the screen, his hands shaking. He had been 25 when he designed this. Now he was 68, retired, and wondering if he remembered how to build anything more complicated than a birdhouse. But the message kept blinking. And outside his window, the sky glowed amber with alien presence. He reached for his phone and called his old team. Similar scenes played out across 6 continents. Engineers received blueprints. Factories received production orders. Military bases received deployment coordinates. ZEUS was mobilizing humanity's industrial capacity, calling on resources that governments didn't even know existed. Secret projects. Abandoned prototypes. Experimental technologies that had been deemed too risky or expensive. ZEUS didn't care about budgets or political approval. It cared about survival. Back at NORAD, Lisa watched as the AI's analysis continued to evolve. The main screen showed a three-dimensional model of the alien blockade, with thousands of ships highlighted in red. But now, small sections were turning yellow, then green. What am I looking at? Her supervisor asked. ZEUS has identified communication patterns, Lisa explained, her fingers dancing across the keyboard to keep up with the data flow. The alien ships aren't completely silent. They're transmitting to each other on frequencies we didn't even know existed. ZEUS cracked their basic protocol structure about an hour ago. Can we talk to them? Not yet. But we're learning their language. ZEUS estimates another 12 hours before we can attempt first contact. Lisa paused, reading a new message that appeared on her screen. Sir, ZEUS is requesting permission to activate the orbital defense grid. We don't have an orbital defense grid. We do now. Apparently, we've been building one for 30 years without knowing it. Every satellite we've launched, every space station module, every piece of orbital debris we've tracked, ZEUS has been positioning them. It's been playing chess with our space program this entire time, setting up a defensive network that only activates if we need it. The supervisor stared at the screen in disbelief. That's insane. That's ZEUS. Sir, we need a decision. Do we activate? He looked at the amber sky visible through the reinforced windows. Looked at the alien armada that had appeared without warning and trapped 8 billion people on their own planet. Then he picked up the red phone that connected directly to the president. Madam President, ZEUS is ready to show us what it can do. 300 miles above Earth, dormant systems came to life. Satellites that had been labeled as communications relays revealed hidden weapon ports. Space debris that was tracked as junk suddenly adjusted course, forming geometric patterns. The International Space Station's solar panels rotated, and panels slid open to reveal equipment that Commander Sarah Chen had never seen before. Houston, what the hell is happening to my station? She demanded. ISS, be advised. ZEUS protocol is active. Your station is now part of Earth's defense network. Please evacuate to the Soyuz capsules and prepare for emergency departure. Sarah looked around at her crew, 3 Americans, 2 Russians, 1 Japanese astronaut. They had been stranded up here when the blockade formed, cut off from supply missions and unable to return home. Now their sanctuary was turning into a weapon. Negative, Houston. We're not abandoning our post. If Earth is fighting, then we fight too. Tell ZEUS we're staying. A long pause. Then a new voice came through the speakers. It was artificial, measured, but somehow carried a weight that made everyone stop and listen. Commander Chen. Your courage is noted. Your station will be defended. Prepare for combat operations. ZEUS acknowledges your service. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She was talking to something that had been asleep for 3 decades. Something designed to wage war against enemies humanity couldn't comprehend. ZEUS, can we win this? Another pause. Then, unknown. But humanity has survived every threat in its history by refusing to surrender. This will be no different. Prepare yourselves. In 6 hours, we show them what Earth is capable of. Around the planet, similar conversations were happening. Military units were mobilizing. Factories were retooling. Scientists were collaborating across borders that had divided them for centuries. The alien blockade had done something unexpected, it had united humanity with a speed that peace never could. And at the center of it all, ZEUS calculated, planned, and prepared for a war that would decide whether humanity remained free or became prisoners in their own solar system. The countdown had begun. First Contact Protocol HFY Sci-Fi Story. The alien communication came at hour 5 of the countdown. Lisa Ramirez was running on her 4th cup of coffee and pure adrenaline when every screen in NORAD went white. Not blank, white, like someone had turned up the brightness to maximum. Then symbols began to appear. They weren't letters or numbers, at least not any human language. They were geometric patterns that shifted and rotated, creating meaning through movement rather than static form. ZEUS, are you seeing this? Lisa called out. The AI's voice responded immediately through the facility speakers. Affirmative. First contact attempt from the blockade fleet. Translation in progress. Stand by. Around the world, the same message appeared on every screen connected to the defense network. Televisions in homes. Smartphones in pockets. Billboard displays in city centers. The aliens weren't just talking to governments, they were talking to everyone. President Reeves stood in the Situation Room, watching as ZEUS processed the alien message at impossible speeds. The geometric symbols flowed like water, rearranging themselves into patterns that almost made sense but remained frustratingly out of reach. How long for translation? She asked. ZEUS is working with a completely unknown language structure, Dr. Okonkwo explained. It could take hours, days, or... The symbols suddenly froze. Then, word by word, they transformed into English. And simultaneously into Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, Hindi, and every major language on Earth. The message was simple, but its implications were staggering. Attention species, human. Your planet has been quarantined. Violation detected, unauthorized technological acceleration. Assessment, danger level critical. You have reached threshold capabilities without required social maturity. Galactic Law Article 7, Containment Protocol activated. You will remain isolated until evaluation is complete. Resistance is prohibited. Compliance is mandatory. This is not negotiable. The Situation Room erupted in chaos. Diplomats shouted over each other. Military advisors demanded immediate action. President Reeves raised her hand, and gradually the room fell silent. So we're prisoners, she said quietly. They've decided we're too dangerous and locked us away. ZEUS, analysis. The AI's response was immediate. Evaluation complete. The message reveals significant strategic information. First, they acknowledge our technological capability, meaning they view us as a potential threat. Second, they reference galactic law, indicating a larger governing structure we were unaware of. Third, they demand compliance, suggesting they expect obedience. Fourth, they claim this is not negotiable. What's your recommendation? Negotiate anyway. A ripple of surprise went through the room. General Hall stepped forward. ZEUS, you were built for combat scenarios. Why are you recommending diplomacy? Because the message reveals a flaw in their strategy, ZEUS responded. They arrived with overwhelming force but did not attack. They established a blockade but have not fired a single weapon. They sent a message explaining their actions, which means they believe in rules and justification. They are bureaucrats with warships. That is a weakness we can exploit. President Reeves allowed herself a small smile. You're saying they're bound by their own laws. Correct. They cannot simply destroy us without cause. They must follow procedure. We can use that time to prepare our defense and craft our response. But we must respond carefully. Our words will determine whether this ends in dialogue or destruction. The president turned to her communications director. Get me a direct line to every world leader. We're drafting humanity's first message to an alien civilization, and we're doing it together. While diplomats worked on the official response, ZEUS was busy with its own preparations. The 6-hour countdown had reached hour 5.5. Every minute counted. In orbit, Commander Sarah Chen and her crew had transformed the International Space Station into a forward observation post. ZEUS had uploaded tactical software to their systems, and now they watched the alien fleet with military precision. I've got movement, called out Yuki Tanaka, the Japanese astronaut manning the telescope array. Section 7 Delta. 3 ships breaking formation. Sarah zoomed in on the coordinates. 3 of the massive bronze vessels had detached from the blockade sphere and were moving toward Earth. Slowly. Deliberately. ZEUS, we have incoming. 3 ships on approach vector. What are they doing? Calculating. Trajectory analysis suggests they are moving to optimal positions for planetary scanning. They intend to examine Earth more closely. Possibly searching for military installations or technological centers. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. They're looking for targets. Affirmative. But they are also providing us with valuable intelligence. The ships have lowered their shields to extend sensor range. For the first time since arrival, they are vulnerable. Are you suggesting we attack? Negative. I am suggesting we learn. These vessels are now exposed. We can study their technology, identify weaknesses, and prepare countermeasures. Every second they spend scanning us is a second we spend scanning them. Sarah understood. This was a chess game, and ZEUS was thinking several moves ahead. Copy that. We'll get you everything we can. Deep in the Australian outback, Robert Tang's workshop had been transformed into a hive of activity. His old engineering team had arrived within hours of his call, and now they were building something that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. The schematics ZEUS had provided were decades old, but the underlying technology was sound. I still can't believe we're actually building a plasma disruptor, muttered Chen Wei, Robert's former colleague who now taught physics at the University of Sydney. We proved this was possible in the 90s, but the power requirements were impossible. Were impossible, Robert corrected, welding 2 components together. ZEUS says it solved the energy problem. Something about quantum battery arrays that weren't available when we designed this. And you trust this AI? You trust that it's not going to use our weapons to start a war we can't win? Robert set down his welding torch and looked at his old friend. I trust that we're locked in a cage by aliens who think we're too dangerous to be free. I trust that if we don't fight back, we'll spend the rest of human history wondering what we could have accomplished if we'd had the courage to try. And I trust that if Zeus wanted to destroy us, it's had 30 years to do it. Chen Wei nodded slowly. Fair enough. Let's finish this. Across the planet, similar scenes were playing out. A factory in Germany was producing electromagnetic pulse generators. A laboratory in Brazil was synthesizing new materials for adaptive armor. A military base in South Korea was retrofitting fighter jets with equipment that could operate in the vacuum of space. Humanity was transforming itself into a fighting force at a speed that seemed impossible. But it wasn't impossible. It was human. Back at the United Nations, the final draft of humanity's response was complete. Every nation had contributed. Every major language was represented. President Reeves read it one last time, knowing that these words could determine the fate of their species. Zeus, please transmit the following message on all channels the aliens are monitoring. Standing by. The president took a deep breath and began to read. To the forces of the Galactic Containment Fleet. We are humanity. We acknowledge your message. We understand your concerns about our technological development. But we reject your authority to imprison us without trial. You claim we lack social maturity. We claim you lack the right to judge. You arrived without warning, without communication, without respect. You speak of galactic law, but we were never informed such law existed. You cannot hold us accountable for rules we never knew. We request formal dialogue. We request representation. We request the opportunity to prove ourselves. If you deny this, then you are not peacekeepers. You are tyrants. And humanity has a long history of fighting tyrants. We do not seek war. But we will not accept chains. The choice is yours. The message transmitted across every frequency Zeus had identified. It broadcast into space in electromagnetic waves, quantum signals, and communication methods humanity had only just discovered existed. The words traveled up to the Bronze Armada, carrying with them the defiance of 8 billion people who refused to surrender their freedom. In the Situation Room, everyone waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. The silence was deafening. Then the alien ships responded. But not with words. With action. The 3 vessels that had broken formation suddenly accelerated toward Earth. Their weapons ports opened, glowing with energy that made the air shimmer even from orbit. Commander Chen's voice crackled through the speakers, tense and urgent. Mr. President, they're charging weapons. Multiple ships. This is not a scanning formation. This is an attack formation. President Reeves looked at General Hull. Are we ready? Zeus is ready. Our orbital platforms are active. Ground-based systems are online. But Madam President, if they fire on civilian populations. Zeus, the President interrupted, her voice like steel. You have full authorization. Defend our planet. The AI's response was calm, almost serene. Acknowledged. Engaging defensive protocols. Humanity will not fall today. In orbit, hidden weapon systems came alive. The war for Earth had begun.